first realized alcohol was a problem in my life probably back in 2019. I was working in a fairly high stress corporate job in marketing and communications, and I was really using alcohol as a way to relax at the end of a long day. And I would come home, I would just automatically go straight to the refrigerator, open a bottle of wine, and the next thing I knew, I had drank that whole bottle of wine sitting on my sofa watching reruns of shows like Friends. And I would wake up the next day, kind of pull myself together, and on my commute into the office, I would think, I am not doing that again tonight. But then by the time I got home, same thing. It's just, that neural pathway in my brain was just so wired to go straight for the refrigerator and open that bottle of wine. And so that went on for quite some time, just that daily cycle. So drinking definitely had a significant impact on my emotional, mental well-being. And one thing a lot of people don't realize is that so many people who do have alcohol use disorder also suffer from depression or anxiety or PTSD. They go hand in hand. They're considered co-occurring disorders. And that was definitely my experience. From a day-to-day basis, by the time I stopped drinking, I pretty much on a daily basis had this kind of, pit of, feeling in the pit of my stomach full of anxiety over either something I may have done or said the night before under the influence, or, work projects that I knew weren't getting done, things of that nature. So just living with that constant feeling of anxiety, and then also depression. I've suffered from depression since I was in college, off and on. So going through periods of time where, thankfully I never had a period in, where I was multiple days where I couldn't get out of bed, but certainly, hours at a time of just not knowing how I was going to get up and function. And the irony is, we know that alcohol is a depressant, but I just never really put two and two together and realized just what it was doing to my mental health when I was drinking. My journey with alcohol really started back in college, as it does with a lot of people. I was painfully shy, and I used alcohol in social situations to deal with social anxiety. And it stayed that way for a number of years through my early adult life as I was building my corporate career in marketing and communications. I was at lots of sales events and corporate events where alcohol was really just part of the culture. And so it helped me at that time to really open up and to feel like I could be social and not be the, sitting on the wall, so to speak, the wallflower. So it was that way for a very long time. And then in my mid-30s, I went through a very painful divorce. And when that happened, I turned from using alcohol in social situations to actually using it to numb my pain. And I really believe that that's the point at which I didn't automatically just become addicted, but I do believe that started my reliance on alcohol to numb that pain. And then over the next 15 years, it was a gradual slide into addiction. I think when it comes to my friends and family and what impact that my drinking had on them, on the surface, it was very minimal because I was really good at hiding what I was drinking and how much I was drinking. And if I was home visiting my family, I hid it. I'd have the wine in my Yeti mug, or where you can tell what it was. It's that kind of thing. But I think that it did impact the depth of relationships that I had. And I kept people at arm's length, and I didn't let people in as much as I do now. So I definitely think that while I never lost any relationships with people that meant a lot to me, I did not have the depth of relationships that I do now. Since I started my journey in sobriety, from a mental health perspective, my anxiety is completely gone. My depression is much, much better. I do still have some issues, but I know how to do things that are healthy, and go take a walk, do things that do some self-care, things like that. I would also say that just I've grown so much as a person, intellectually. I've tried new things. I've just, it's hard to explain, but they say that your intellectual capacity is stunted, your growth is stunted at the age at which you start drinking heavily. And for me, that was in my early 20s. And I feel like from an emotional perspective, my growth there was stunted. And so I've been making up for lost time. And I do believe that I've made a lot of strides in that department as well. So there are so many resources available now to anybody who is stuck in this cycle of daily drinking that wants to make a change. Traditionally, everybody of course thinks of rehab centers and AA, and those methods are still available. But there are so many new programs available, and many of which are free or very low cost. That involve coaching and communities of like-minded people. Most of it's online, so it's very accessible. So I found an online program. I would encourage anybody, in this situation to just go and do a Google search for online alcohol addiction treatment, coaching programs, things of that nature. And there's just so many out there. Also, there's a whole genre of literature called Quit Lit. So there are so many books available that people can just read. Some people can get sober just from reading a book. So some of my favorites are This Naked Mind by Annie Grace, or We Are the Luckiest by Laura McCowan, The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober by Catherine Gray. Those are just three that I loved. And I've read those multiple times throughout my journey. So that can be very helpful. And then there's podcasts, there's Facebook groups, there's blogs, there's so many resources available now. And sobriety is not a one size fits all. It's so very individualized. And so I would just encourage people to see what's available and see what what resonates with them. So when I finally decided that it was time to make a change, honestly, I never hit rock bottom. So many people think you have to have some big incident occur in your life, and that didn't happen for me, but it was during the pandemic, about 6 months into working from home. I was already drinking too much before the pandemic, and then during the pandemic certainly was drinking too much because it was so easy to do. And so I just got to a point where I was just really tired of feeling sick and tired all the time. And so ultimately, the Facebook gods knew what I was going through somehow, and a program just showed up in my Facebook feed one day for a 21-day reset. And at that point in my life, I wasn't ready to say I'm going to give up alcohol, but I knew I needed to cut back. I knew I needed to make a change. And so I thought, well, I can do anything for 21 days. And so I signed up for this reset program, and that kind of started me on about a year-long journey of going back and forth between taking a break for weeks at a time and then trying to moderate, which never really worked very well for me. So I would just say it just got to a point where I was just wanting to feel better about myself, wanting to feel physically better, mentally better, wanting to be the best version of myself. And so magically I found a program that really helped in that regard. So when I was in my darkest days, back when I was going through a divorce and I was using alcohol to numb my pain, it was no longer something for fun or for being part of society, but it was really, me and the bottle and the alcohol, and that's what I was using on a daily basis to numb that pain. And I would say there were times where I never actively, made any plans towards suicide, but there were times when I certainly didn't care if I was alive or dead. There's at least one occasion I can think of when I, came home from a night of drinking. Certainly I shouldn't have been driving. So I definitely had some risky behavior at that time of my life. And I can remember closing the garage door to my garage and not turning off the car and sitting there for a minute and having that thought. Thankfully, I'm a very faithful person, and I just, God talked to me in that moment and said, nope, this isn't your time. And I turned off the car and I went upstairs and hugged my dog. So I think my faith and my family got me through that. So my own personal alcohol-free journey, which took a year of going back and forth between drinking and not drinking, and finally had my last day one on November the 11th of 2021. And since then, I've been on this journey of growth, and I decided that I got to a point where I really wanted to give back. And so I got a certification in, really it's in mindset training and working with people who want to stop that daily drinking habit and just don't know where to start, because it really all starts with us as people and what we believe and what we feel. And so I've developed a coaching program where I can help people to go on that journey and guide them through that, and so that they aren't going it alone, but they have somebody to help them along the way. And if anybody is interested in finding out about that, my website is alcoholfreelife.com. And you can go there, learn a little bit more about me and the resources that I have available. For anybody that is struggling with daily drinking or mental health issues, the first thing I would say is just don't try to go it alone. As a former daily drinker, I know what happens when you're caught in this, we call it cognitive dissonance. You're caught in this internal struggle between a part of you that is saying you really should cut back or you need to stop drinking, and then you've got the other side of you that after that long day, you're so mentally programmed by everything around us that the drink is what you need. You need that drink. And so if you are trying to do it yourself, you're just constantly in this battle. So it sounds cliche, but seek help. Help is available, help is out there. And if you can find that community of like-minded people. I still am friends, 4 years later, with the people that I went through this journey with from day one, and they're my sisters now, and I rely on them. And so I would just say, don't go it alone. One thing that I just really want to get across is that I believe I know there is still so much stigma associated with alcoholism, and our society, specifically since the pandemic, has done an amazing job at dealing with the stigma with mental health. But I do believe that alcoholism still carries such a stigma, and a good reason is that people just don't know about the opportunities that are available to get help. And I think the more people that come out, talk about it, shine a light on it, and make people aware of these resources that are available, that people will get help sooner, because I don't believe that we have to hit rock bottom to get help and to build beautiful lives that are joyful and that no longer rely on alcohol to numb or escape.